First Take on a Wednesday. Good day. Thanks for hanging with us. Max Kellerman, Stephen A. Smith, Molly Karam here with you.
What's up, baby?
Guys, I'm pretty fired up about today's show.
One more day.
Y'all fired up about today's show. I don't know about myself. I mean,
you got
Shaq's
the three-piece on.
I mean, Shaq, I do.
You're
look
ready
smooth.
to go.
Don't I look
Stop
smooth?
NFL coming up tomorrow night.
I must admit
got
that
the
myself.
knit tie.
But that damn Shaquille O'Neal coming into my house. He always trying to take over. He always does that stuff.
You don't like anyone stealing
Why
your
don't you come
shine?
on the show and just try to take over? He always does that stuff, but I'll deal with him later. I'll deal with him.
Yes, so Shaq is going to be with us, and so is John Gruden. So please stay tuned for that.
John Gruden's coming?
Yeah, John Gruden.
I'm sorry, did I invite John Gruden?
Yes,
did I invite John Gruden?
He's going to educate you.
Actually, oh no, John Gruden will not educate me. John Gruden is in a world of trouble. Let me look, put that camera on me right now. John Gruden is in a world of trouble when he gets on this show because really? John Gruden has some explaining to do to me. I'll tell y'all why. He in trouble.
Always about him, Max.
No.
You'll catch on to
You're going to take him to quarterback camp?
What about me? What about me? What about me? That would be the name of my production company with my boy Jeff. What About Me Productions?
Shout out to Jeff. All right, let's get into it. We kick things off with Stephen A's Steelers. Four-time Super Bowl champion quarterback Terry Bradshaw's high praise for current Steelers quarterback Ben Roethlisberger. In an interview with Steelers.com, Bradshaw saying, quote, "I would rate Ben right on top of the list, ahead of Brady for sure and anybody else, Rivers, Eli. He's big, strong, and poised. Ben has amazing talent, strong arm, strong guy. Big in big games, clutch throws, make something happen. It's been years of solid, exceptional play. He could have been the MVP in the league last year if he would have stayed healthy. I'm not saying this because I'm a Steeler and trying to suck up to anybody. I'm just telling you, he is special, different. I'll take Roethlisberger over any of those guys." Bold words there.
It's very, very bold words. It's very bold words. It's the great Terry Bradshaw, by the way, a four-time Super Bowl champion with the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah,
just phenomenal.
Right.
Just phenomenal. He
Good
does a phenomenal job on Fox, and I deeply appreciate Terry Bradshaw. I love him. He knows that. Plus, he gives me hope that when I lose my hair like he does, I might still have a chance of looking good. Anything's possible in this world. But let me say this. Although I do believe he's engaged in just a touch of hyperbole, because we all know that the best quarterback in football is that bad man, Aaron Rodgers. I must confess to you, I would put Roethlisberger at 3. I think about the NFL, and don't you shake your head. Did I explain myself? You don't start with me, Max. We ain't even start the show practically. You just watch yourself. Ben Roethlisberger deserves to be top 3. That's right, I said it. The man is a 2-time Super Bowl champion. He's been throwing for 4,000 yards plus for most of the past 5 seasons. He's got 2 Super Bowl rings. The Steelers are perennial, they're perennial playoff contenders as far as I'm concerned. When I think about what Ben Roethlisberger has done, there's only 2 quarterbacks that come before him, and we all know who they are. The bad man that he is, Aaron Rodgers, because he's a bad man. And, of course, the great Tom Brady. That's it, because his resume speaks volumes. I don't want to hear about Cam Newton ahead of Ben Roethlisberger. I don't want to hear about Russell Wilson ahead of Ben Roethlisberger. Don't roll your eyes at me, Molly. Listen, this is serious business here. Because let me tell you something right now. And this is the problem, especially with you.
There's more than that better than Ben Roethlisberger, too, but I'll get to that.
Listen, here's the problem with people like you. You know what? The fair-weather dudes, breath smelling like Similac, wet behind the ears, just a younger generation. That's right, me, the elder statesman of the crew.
Yeah.
Isn't it a damn shame? It's
Max
true.
is a real
it's just
rookie.
The truth. But it's people like you, Max, because here's why. When you look at Big Ben Roethlisberger, you're going to sit there and look at Cam Newton last year. Okay, I'm going to look at the years before last year. You're going to look at Russell Wilson in the last 8 games last year and how phenomenal he was. I'm going to look at all of those years. As great as I think Russell Wilson is and as spectacular as I think he can be, I'm thinking about the fact that, he was riding that defense of the Seattle Seahawks to prominence because we all knew that it was their defense that got them there. Whereas when I'm looking at the Pittsburgh Steelers, I haven't thought about the Pittsburgh Steel Curtain for a long time. The Steel Curtain has left me. It has departed. It has betrayed me and Steeler lovers everywhere, okay? Their defense stinks half the time. Don't get me started with their secondary, all right? But they're getting younger, getting more speed, more athleticism. So we hope that they will show up. But in the end, they've given you nothing to believe in whatsoever over the last several years. So why have the Steelers been in the playoffs? Why have they captured 2 Super Bowls? Why have they been considered a team to be reckoned with? Because of Big Ben Roethlisberger. That's why I'm thinking top 3. You give me, and if you want to make an argument, you got to put Breeze even before you put Cam Newton and Russell Wilson.
And Ben Roethlisberger, but that's another story.
And I'm still going to pick Big Ben, because when I look at it, I think about Brady and I think about Aaron Rodgers. Those are the 2 dudes whose resumes, I know that doesn't matter to young bucks like yourself, Max Kellerman, but for people like me, your resume speaks volumes. Who you are, what you have accomplished over a longer period of time matters. I've said it many times, I'll say it again. A dead clock is right twice a day. Anybody can have a good season. Not anybody, but a lot of people can have a good season. A lot of people can have a one-year winner or be a one-hit wonder. It's what you do over a lengthy period of time that counts. And Big Ben Roethlisberger has a resume. For you young folks out there, I know you may not know what that means. Learn it. Resumes matter. They speak for you even more than potential.
Yeah, resumes matter when you're talking about the Hall of Fame. When you're talking about career value, of course resumes matter. But we're talking about right now. And you're falling into the trap that many fall into. Let me tell you something. I can sit here and say Ghostface is my favorite rapper, right? Ghostface is my favorite rapper of all time. And he's one of the greatest rappers of all time. But I'm not going to sit here and argue that he's Jay or Biggie or someone like I don't think I'm going to win the argument. I don't care, because he's my favorite and he's an all-time great. That's who I'm listening to. You want to tell me that Ben Roethlisberger is your favorite? I get it. He's kind of my favorite, too. I get it. And he's great. But that doesn't mean just because he has had so far a more accomplished career than Cam Newton that he's better than Cam Newton right now. He's not. If he was, he would have won the MVP.
That's not true. There's plenty of people that have won the MVPs before, Max, and they fell off the wagon.
And in those seasons, they were the best. But Cam Newton's in his physical prime. He's not injured. He's in his mid-20s. You expect him to get worse? Or Ben Roethlisberger. Now, let's look at the teams they're on.
Okay.
But first of all, you have him 3rd. Aaron Rodgers, yes. Cam Newton is number 2, and he's nipping at Aaron Rodgers' heels right now.
So you have Rodgers. Yeah.
Cam Newton.
That's right.
I'm sorry.
Cam Newton's number 2. According to NFL players, he's number 1.
I'm stuttering here.
Yeah.
You got Cam Newton ahead of Tom Brady?
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
And by the way...
You are smoking something. What is the matter with you? What is the matter with you?
How many touchdowns?
How many touchdowns? Blasphemy. How could you say such a thing?
How many touchdowns did Tom Brady was he responsible for last year? 39. Cam Newton, 45.
Oh.
45 or 39.
So hold on. So 6
halfway
touchdowns.
Through the season.
Hold on, I'm sorry. So response, because I'm asking questions. I know it's your time. I'm just asking questions here. I just want to make sure I'm clear, Molly. Help me out here. I'm asking questions. So Tom Brady being responsible for 6 less touchdowns than Cam Newton in 1 year elevates Cam Newton above Tom Brady, despite the resume that Tom Brady has that includes 4 Super Bowl titles?
Sure, it's one of the things.
Where's security?
Absolutely.
The ESPN should have you drug tested right now. Right now.
That guy's 6'6". The other guy's 6'3". Just because he's 3 inches taller means he's taller.
I need urine samples. I need drug testing. I need everything. How could you say such a thing?
Just because Shaq is 7'1", that means he was taller than Jordan, who was 6'6"? Yes, it does. You just count. Yes, absolutely. That's one of the reasons he had a better season. Halfway through last season, it looked like Tom Brady was the runaway choice for MVP. No one else was in the conversation. 3 quarters through the season, you started looking, going, maybe Cam. And by the end of the season, Cam Newton was the correct choice for MVP, and he didn't even have the best second half of the season. That would be Russell Wilson. Now, you bring up Ben Roethlisberger, who is a great quarterback and one of my favorites, maybe my favorite quarterback, other than Eli Manning, because I'm a Giants fan. But is he even top 5? Aaron Rodgers, Cam Newton, Tom Brady, Russell Wilson, who's won a Super Bowl, who does not have the same offensive weapons Ben Roethlisberger has, who, by the way, was always considered correctly an excellent game manager who was big on 3rd down and could pick up yards with his legs. That's kind of exactly who you want, and has now evolved into a big-time playmaker who's usually, so many clutch plays in his career. Russell Wilson 4, Drew Brees 5, Ben Roethlisberger 6.
Wow.
I'd love to put him in the top 5. There's just no room,
6.
Stephen A.
6.
I'm just trying to figure out how soon you should be banned. I mean, this is unbelievable. I'll give you credit for bravery to come on national television to spew your idiocy. Your contemptible, just insulting stuff. A two-time Super Bowl champion who we've all speculated may be the orchestrator of the most prolific offense of the modern-day era by the time we get finished watching this Steelers offense. If it wasn't for Martavis Bryant getting himself suspended for the year, it would unquestionably be the most prolific offense of the modern-day era with the weapons that the Steelers have at their disposal. That's right, I said it. Excuse me, Le'Veon Bell, D'Angelo Williams, Martavis Bryant, Antonio Brown. What I'm saying to you
You're making my point.
What I'm saying to you is that the Steelers, even when they didn't have that, was still a team to be reckoned with offensively because of Big Ben. Cam Newton had a great year. He had a better year than Big Ben last year. Russell Wilson had a bigger year than Big Ben last year. Are you telling me they're better than Big Ben?
Could you imagine?
Resume-wise and what they bring to the table?
No, you keep making it about resume. I'm talking about right now. I'm talking about right now.
Listen.
Hold on. Do this thought experiment.
Sure.
Do this thought experiment, okay?
Sure, go ahead.
Give Cam Newton the Steelers' offensive line from last year, and then add Antonio Brown.
They lost Pouncey last year. They lost Pouncey last year. That was a bit. Hold on, listen. Jonathan Stewart is nothing to sneeze at. That's number one.
Is he Le'Veon Bell?
No, but the point is. But wait a minute. But he is more durable. Number one. Number two. They usually do a lot of. They usually do a lot of read option and play action. So we have to think about how guys are utilized. Ben Roethlisberger ain't trying to run like Cam Newton. Ben Roethlisberger is strictly a drop back passer, a pocket passer who shrugs off defenders to make things happen. He doesn't have the athleticism, nor does he try to exude the athleticism that a Cam Newton has. We recognize that, but he extends.
He doesn't have
no other.
I just said that. I'm sorry, you didn't hear me. I just said that he didn't have that. My point to you is that he doesn't have it, but you know what Cam doesn't have? His ability to throw in the pocket the way Big Ben can. You gonna tell me he does?
Cam
You're gonna tell me that Cam Newton can throw in the pocket like Big Ben Roethlisberger?
If you want to rate that skill, I'll rate Ben Roethlisberger ahead of Cam on that skill.
Hold on, listen. I'm saying to you,
but Cam is only one.
The edge that you give Cam Newton, athletically, motor skills, is the edge I would give Big Ben over Cam as a pocket passer.
Here, let me make it really simple.
So which one do you need?
I'll make it really simple.
More as a quarterback.
I'll just make it real simple. Cam Newton's better than Ben Roethlisberger. How about this? Drew Brees. Give Drew Brees, who has has as many 5,000-yard passing seasons as everyone else in history combined. Give Drew Brees Ben Roethlisberger's team, his offensive line and his offensive weapons. What does Drew Brees do?
We can debate that, and I would concede to you. I would concede to you that is a far better argument than Cam or Russell Wilson as a pocket passer or quarterback, which is what I'm thinking about primarily. Don't give me that. You just told me yesterday.
Wilson.
Hold on. You just told me yesterday don't pay attention to those numbers. Now you gonna bring up the numbers?
No.
You didn't say that yesterday?
No.
You didn't say that yesterday?
No, I did not. No, I did not.
You really?
I said don't pay attention to the counting numbers, the antiquated numbers. Pay attention to the more sophisticated.
That's what you said yesterday.
That's
what you said yesterday.
Yes,
you said
don't pay attention. Don't pay attention to RBIs.
Hold on, wait a minute.
Pay attention to on-base percentage. Don't pay attention to raw count.
Hold on.
Pay attention to efficiency numbers.
But you said it while I was bringing up present-day metrics. You said it while I was bringing up QBR.
Now you're changing
No. I didn't say it. You said that when I said those things.
Who had the highest QBR in the second half of last season ahead of Drew Brees?
Who?
Russell Wilson.
Yes.
Yeah, he balled.
Did Russell Wilson also win a Super Bowl title?
Yes, he did. One.
Okay.
And lost the other one. That interception, by Malcolm Butler, that should have never been thrown, by the way. Keep going.
Sure.
Keep going.
Did Ben Roethlisberger not ride a great defense to a Super Bowl title, his first one? Was he really good in those playoffs?
The one against Seattle?
He made a tackle in the open field, but otherwise, was he really good in those playoffs?
Ben Roethlisberger was not that impressive at all in that Super Bowl against Seattle, but he was impressive getting them there, not to mention the fact that he damn sure was impressive with that drive to Santonio Holmes, one of the greatest drives we'll ever see, in a Super Bowl.
Did Roethlisberger get to the Super Bowl last year?
No, he did not.
Is he the reigning MVP?
No.
Okay.
So?
Did he have a great offensive line and great offensive
No,
line?
he did not have a great offensive line last year.
He didn't have a great offensive line.
He had a decent.
last year.
Pouncey was out. Pouncey was out. That took a lot out of that.
That takes
Hold on. That's a very, very significant thing.
Sure,
what are you talking about? That's very, very significant. Pouncey is a very. Are you just going to dismiss Pouncey? Is that what you're doing? Is that what you're doing?
Elite O-line last year. Steelers an elite O-line last year.
They were pretty
They were
solid.
not elite. Not the word elite. I'm addressing Max's word. Don't try to jump in to help him. Let him hold his own. You use
He
the
needs
word
a voice
elite.
of
The
reason.
Steelers were not
Aaron
an elite
Rodgers,
offensive line.
Cam Newton.
Yep.
Tom Brady.
Yep.
Russell Wilson, Drew Brees, that's the top 5.
Okay.
And then, maybe my favorite, Ben Roethlisberger, but I'm not going to allow that to make me overrate him.
Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady,
Yep.
you can give me Bruce or Big Ben 3 or 4, it's a pick 'em, and Cam Newton's 5.
Okay.
Hold on,
Fair enough. And Terry Bradshaw has Big Ben at 1. Let's remind everyone.
Let me say this. He has Big Ben at 1. And I'm questioning that because I can't ignore Russell Wilson. I can't ignore him. I'm questioning that. But don't tell me that the top 4 ain't Brady or Rodgers, Brady, Big Ben, and Drew Brees.
That is precisely what I'm telling you. And after this year, he's going to be 7 because here comes Andrew Luck.
Guess what, gentlemen? Paging John Gruden. We need his help here. The NFL season kicks off in 1 day, and who better to preview the season and help break this down? We need to get to the bottom of this. A real pro here. He's going to answer this question.
John Gruden is in trouble.
He does not need help.
He's in trouble.
He'll be with us next. Stay here. Can't wait.
This is Shaquille O'Neal, and I'm coming up on First Take. Stephen A., I got the tissue for you, baby. Don't cry. Dry your eye. Here comes Shaq, and I'm not a little guy.
Four-man rush, moving the pocket. He's hit and sacked inside the 5. The ball is free. Denver's got it. Touchdown, Denver. And down he goes.
Our defense was awesome tonight.
He hit from behind and down he goes. And there's DeMarcus Ware.
Newton, fastball over the middle, tipped, intercepted.
They just played better than us. I don't know what you want me to say.
The Denver Broncos are world champions. They have just won Super Bowl 50. And the Lombardi Trophy is coming home to the Mile High City.
It's the eve of the NFL season. It has been over 200 days since the Broncos beat the Panthers in the Super Bowl. The NFL season kicking off tomorrow with a rematch. And who better to preview the season but former head coach of the Raiders and Bucks and our color analyst for ESPN's Monday Night Football games. We are so excited to have John Gruden here on First Take. Coach, thank you so much for being with us.
Hey, thanks. Good morning. Thanks for having me.
What's up, Coach? Stephen A. Smith here, your long-lost buddy. Always great to see you, Coach. I've been looking for you for quite some time. Last time we were face-to-face a couple of years ago, you sat up there and told me somebody will gut you. He got you. You were talking about Tim Tebow and how he was going to be a star. And yet, Stephen A., you don't know, Stephen. He'll gut you. You turn your back, he'll gut you. He'll take you out. And now he's playing baseball. Do you owe me an apology, Coach? I'm just wondering.
Hey, last time I was in Bristol to be on your show, you were homesick or something, or you were hiding from me.
Get him.
So it goes both ways, my friend. Tebow did win a playoff game, and I'm still convinced I could get Tebow and come back to the league someday and win some games. I still believe that guy can play.
Yeah, yet he never got another shot. 7-4. Is that an issue of people looking at the kind of process too much? He doesn't throw right, he doesn't look right, this and that, and not enough at the results?
Well, there's a lot of ways to win football games, but when you have Demaryius Thomas and Eric Decker and John Elway in the front office, you probably want to throw the football, and clearly they went a different direction, and they haven't found a place for Tim Tebow to work and play the kind of football that he plays. It's going to take a full commitment to the zone read, the spread system that he had success with at Florida.
Coach, I just want to thank you for putting Stephen A. in his place there, checking him. That doesn't happen often on the show. We love it. But I need your help here, and can you be a voice of reason for us? So earlier, we were having a debate on Ben Roethlisberger, where he ranks among the league's best quarterbacks. Terry Bradshaw had him at 1. Stephen A. has him at 3. Max has him 6 overall. Where would you rank Big Ben?
I have a hard time ranking these guys 1 through 10 or 1 through 12, but he's in the top 5. Anytime you're a 2-time world champion and you have the results that he's had. His win-loss record speaks for itself. And I just saw Pittsburgh in the preseason play Philadelphia without Roethlisberger. I saw him play Carolina without Roethlisberger. I saw him play last year in the regular season without Roethlisberger. Pittsburgh can't score without Ben Roethlisberger, so I can see why Terry Bradshaw had him number 1. He's in the top 2 or 3 in my book. He's able to do just about anything you want him to do, running or passing.
So who do you leave out of the top 5, Coach? Because someone's got to drop. There's only so many spaces. If he's top 2 or 3, there's Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, and Ben Roethlisberger. Is that your list? I mean, that means he's ahead of Drew Brees, Cam Newton, Russell Wilson.
I knew I was going to hear from you to start this debate. All I can say is I think there's 10 guys you can win a world championship with. I think it's a matter of who they have as their supporting cast, what kind of offensive line, what kind of receivers, what kind of defense do they play. I have a hard time keeping Phillip Rivers and Drew Brees out of this conversation. They just don't have the supporting cast that they've had in previous seasons. But you got to go with Russell Wilson. You got to put Cam Newton up there. You've got to have Rodgers and Brady up there. Hard to keep Ben Roethlisberger out of my top 5.
What about Eli Manning, who not only has 2 Super Bowls, but unlike Ben Roethlisberger, has 2 Super Bowl MVPs?
But you got to get to the recent facts. They haven't been in the playoffs. They haven't been in competition for the big wins. Until they get back, I think we put Eli outside the top 5 right now.
Coach, it's interesting that you bring that up because right now, on a serious note, just break this down. I know you don't get into people's money or anything like that, but we had a debate yesterday where we were talking about Drew Brees, and my attitude is I don't care about the 37 years of age. I'm thinking about the 4 times he's thrown for over 5,000 yards. I'm thinking about the last 10 years he's thrown for at least 4,000 yards. And I'm saying what he means to that Saints organization, particularly on the offensive side of the ball, when you consider how anemic their defense has been, this is a man that is worthy of the contract he is seeking. Max is of the mindset that, excuse me, no quarterback past the age of 40 gets it done. I'm not thinking about giving Brees those kind of dollars. What's your take on Brees' value to the New Orleans Saints in terms of his worth overall?
Well, Steven, name 1 Pro Bowl receiver that he's played with.
Can't do it.
I'm waiting. I don't know that he's had. How many have he had? How many has he had? He has done it with a variety of different tight ends, receivers, offensive linemen. And you said it. It's not production. It's great production. Yardage, points, third down, red zone. Drew Brees does it at the line of scrimmage. He is relentless in his preparation, his conditioning, and he has not had a lot of continuity around him, and their defense has really struggled recently. They almost have to score every time they get the ball.
Yeah, but Drew Brees, one of the best I've ever seen, Coach, for what that's worth. Maybe not much compared to what obviously you've seen. And yet, if you look at it, quarterbacks to a man, not a single exception in the history of football so far. They can cruise along at a very high altitude till even past 40. But before their 41st birthday, none of them have ever been the same. And he'll be 38 these playoffs. How many dollars can you really commit to that guy over how many years?
That's a great question. It's going to get hard. You know, you're looking at some of the best quarterbacks in the whole league that are getting up there. Eli Manning, you just talked about. Phillip Rivers. You have Drew Brees. You have a number of these guys, Tom Brady, that are getting up there in age. Tony Romo is another man making a lot of money. Where are the replacements coming from? If you don't have a quarterback, you can't win. I think people are really rolling the dice, but these guys have proven they can play, but you have to get a contingency plan pretty soon.
Let me transition to Andrew Luck, Coach, and what your thoughts are about him. Last year, just 15 touchdowns, 12 interceptions in the games that he played, had a myriad of injuries. That offensive line over the last several years hasn't done the greatest job of protecting him. Plus, you haven't had a stout running game, so he's got to drop back to pass, even though he's got some of the speediest receivers in the game, and Moncrief, Hilton, and others. The bottom line is simple. I still have some trepidation about the Indianapolis Colts simply because of how they're built. I know they've been trying to buffer up their offensive line, but I'm wondering what should we expect from Andrew Luck based on what we saw last year. Do you expect more of the same, or do you expect him to make amends for the kind of year he had last year, struggling even before he had the injuries?
Well, they got to get their supporting cast resolve. They just don't run the football there. They haven't had a 100-yard back in about 5 years. They do not run the football. They don't protect the passer, and Andrew Luck is getting punished. He could be in the conversation of being in the top 5 or number 1 overall, but they got to get some help. This offensive line has struggled, to say the least. They've got a rookie center. That's a start. I love Kelly, their draft pick out of Alabama, but everywhere else they have struggled big time. If I'm the owner of the Colts, I'm going to resolve the offensive line. I'm going to take care of Luck because he is getting hit way too much. I worry about him. I really do.
Well, how worried are you about him when you consider the AFC South? We got Brock Osweiler in Houston now. Everybody says Jacksonville is coming. Mariota had an impressive rookie campaign, and now you've got DeMarco Murray and Derrick Henry both in Tennessee, and they seem like they're capable of doing some things. How worried should the Colts be, not just for Andrew Luck, but for themselves, based on what we're seeing developing in the AFC South?
I like the quarterbacks in the South, and I think if you put all 4 teams in the AFC South on the board and just looked at position by position, I think the Colts are 4th out of 4 in terms of overall personnel. They don't have the marquee pass rushers. They don't have the shutdown defenders. They don't have the offensive line or the running game. Some of these teams like Tennessee and Jacksonville are on their way up, and the Houston Texans, over the last 10 games of the regular season last year, as good as anyone in the NFL on defense. And when you throw in Fuller out of Notre Dame, Braxton Miller out of Ohio State to go with DeAndre Hopkins and Bill O'Brien with Osweiler, I think Indianapolis is in trouble.
Yeah, the Texans look legit. I'm excited to see where they go this year. Coach, we'll give you a quick break. We'll get you as a hot seat here for now. When we come back, we'll have more with you. Stay put. More First Take after the break with John Gruden. Stay here. Back with ESPN Monday Night Football analyst John Gruden. So happy to have him here with us. And Coach, one of the most intriguing teams this season has to be the Broncos, obviously the reigning Super Bowl champs, but they come into the season looking very different, you could argue, on both sides of the ball. What are your expectations for Denver this season?
We got to remember Denver wasn't a very good offensive team last year. Got to remember that. They turned the ball over a lot. They didn't throw the ball or pass protect at a championship level, but what they did is they played unbelievable defense. The cornerstones are still there. I think the Pro Bowl members of that secondary, the marquee pass rushers are intact. That's where the rubber meets the road, that championship defense. They got to prove this young quarterback can play, and I think to do that, they're going to have to rely on the Gary Kubiak running game early.
Coach, what about the loss of Malik Jackson and Danny Trevathan? How do you feel about that?
I think Malik Jackson's a big loss. That inside pass rush, that's what made them very unique. They're going to have to manufacture some other ways to get there. I hear that they have some young guys in the mix that they like. Derek Wolfe is still there. And Wade Phillips is going to blitz. We all know that he's going to bring 5 and play tight man-to-man coverage. They got to prove that they can replace the men that they lost. Trevathan can cover. He was a good space player against all these spread formations. They lost their punter yesterday. Colquitt, I thought, was outstanding, not to mention Peyton Manning's leadership in the locker room. They got a lot to prove, just like everybody else.
Coach, when I look at the AFC, here's what it comes down to for me. We can talk about the reigning defending Super Bowl champions, but as far as I'm concerned, you've lost the brilliance of a Peyton Manning, who wasn't brilliant last year in terms of his physical performance, but we all know the intellect that he brings to the quarterback position. That's going to sorely be missed, and it's certainly not going to be replaced by a guy that hasn't really even thrown an NFL regular season pass in Trevor Siemian. So when I look at the AFC, it comes down to me to 3 teams. I'm thinking about the New England Patriots, particularly with the addition of Martellus Bennett to join Gronkowski. Once Brady comes back, I don't expect him to lose more than 2 games. I'm looking at the Pittsburgh Steelers, even with the absence of Martavis Bryant. I think their offense will be prolific. And unfortunately, I can't rule out the Cincinnati Bengals, even though they haven't won a playoff game in Marvin Lewis's 12-year career there. And, of course, I'll take into account Kansas City. Am I missing anybody, or does it come down to those 4 teams? Kansas City, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, and New England.
I think you got to take a good look at the Oakland Raiders, my friend. My old team.
You sure? You sure that's not emotional?
This team is interesting.
You sure that's not emotional?
You got to take a look. You got to take a look at the Oakland Raiders. I mean, they got a young quarterback that is on the rise. They have skill now. They got Crabtree. They got Cooper. They can run the ball with Murray. And player for player, they have as good an offensive line as there is in the AFC. If they can get a lead, Khalil Mack in this defense, they picked up Bruce Irvin. They can close you out. I like the Raiders. I like the silver and black.
Coach, staying in the AFC, and Stephen A. mentioned it, the Bengals. Now, they haven't won a playoff game, but last year it looked to me like Andy Dalton was showing signs of turning the corner under pressure. He hadn't been a great pressure player till then, but he'd seemed to reach, you know, at new, if not consistent, regular season heights. And then there were little instances, you know, prime time games, second half of games, second half of the season. There was an uptick in production. And I was really looking forward to him playing in the playoffs, and then it didn't happen, and the whole Burfict hit and everything. Do you think the Bengals are ready to take the next step finally?
I think Andy Dalton is ready to take the next step. I think he gets way too much credit for them not advancing in the playoffs. I think they got to play better collectively as a team. They've been in the playoffs under Dalton 5 straight years. Dalton has played good football. They have to get everybody on the same page in November, December, and certainly in January. But they don't have Tyler Eifert. They don't have Marvin Jones. Can the 2 offensive linemen that they drafted last year play? I haven't seen that yet. They have some questions they got to get resolved. They just lost their first-round pick, Jackson, a cornerback they were counting on. They got to prove some things just like Denver. That's why I think it's wide open. Go back to the Raiders. I think this is the year the silver and black gets back in the mix.
I still sense the emotion there. I mean, we all know you know your football, of course. We're proud to have you as our Monday Night Football voice, but I do sense the emotion with the silver and black. But I'll let it slide. I'll let it slide because, Coach, I got to tell you something. Something's been on my mind, and this doesn't really have much to do with what we're talking about, but I'm wondering how we should be looking at the Houston Texans in this respect. I like Rick Smith. I like the job that he has done. I'm a fan of Bill O'Brien, the coach. I think he can coach. The Houston Texans had an opportunity to have Khalil Mack, and they passed on him for Jadeveon Clowney, and there's still an APB out for his game. We can't find him during the regular season. I'm wondering, Coach, could you tell me, have you ever found yourself imagining what life would be like in Houston with that defense, if J.J. Watt had Khalil Mack with him, how different things would be in Houston? Could you talk to me about that for a second?
Well, talk about how different it would be if they took Derek Carr at the top of the second round a couple of years ago. I wonder what it would have been like if I'd have taken Aaron Rodgers instead of the guy we took. But you can't keep wiping the tears off your face. Hey, Clowney can play.
Oh,
Clowney can play. He's got to get healthy. He's got to prove it. He's had a good preseason. The guy was electrifying at times at South Carolina.
At times.
He was a slam dunk #1 overall pick.
I can't believe I'm hearing
Clowney, if you're listening to the show, it's your time. This is your time, Jadeveon.
Yes. Jadeveon Clowney is his name. And by the way, Coach, listen, I never said he can't. Hold on, listen to me. I never said he can't play. What I said is he ain't playing. The best ability is availability, which he never has in his favor. And when he was at South Carolina, even though he could play, he was taking time off, and we all know that. So I'm shocked that you would just sit there and say that, Coach. I really am.
Well, there's a lot of ways to look at this. There's a lot of ways that you can second-guess your picks. But the story has not been written yet. Clowney has the opportunity to prove to all of his skeptics, like you, that he is a legitimate #1 pick. Remember, there are players, Stephen, that don't explode onto the scene as rookies. I know how impatient you and all your friends are, but sometimes it takes a little bit of time. So keep an eye on Clowney this year. I think he's going to have 12 sacks.
I have been patient. And more importantly, John Gruden, I have been patient with you in the past, okay? And I'm still waiting, Coach. I'm still waiting. So I hear what you're saying. I'm going to hold you to that, too. I'm going to hold you. Go ahead, Matt.
Stay within the realm of reality, as I'd like to try to do, at least so someone on this show can do it.
I'm waiting for you to pull it off. I'm waiting for you to pull it off. Go ahead.
Now, let's say Clowney can stay healthy. Of course, that's a what-if, but he's at the point in his career where maybe, you know, he's entering his physical prime. He has some experience. If he stays healthy with him and J.J. Watt on the – how good can this Texas defense be?
Well, you got to throw in Romeo Cornell, their defensive coordinator. He's one of the best at making adjustments. He comes, obviously, from that Bill Belichick family. And in the second half, late in the third quarter, he puts something in the game that you haven't seen for the first 45 minutes, and it drives people crazy. They have a great scheme. They can blitz you. They can play multiple coverages. The secondary is coming alive. I like the Texans. If Osweiler comes through, you might just see the Texans and the Raiders in the AFC
it's all about the silver
game.
and black. Who else picked the silver and black on this show?
I just think John Gruden, he's great, but I just think he's emotional right now when it comes to the Raiders.
The Super
I really
Bowl
do.
winning coach.
I really do. I got my suspicions about John Gruden on this one. I really do.
Please.
I really do.
Coach, sticking with us up
Hey,
next.
if I can get an earpiece that works, next time, I'll come on the show for an hour and go after you.
Oh.
Whoa.
I accept that challenge. I accept that challenge,
I would love it.
It might be a blessing for him. He has one that doesn't work. All right. Up next, we're going to look at the NFC. The Cowboys are going to be without Tony Romo for the near future. Coach will tell us if he thinks they are done after the break. Plus, Shaq won 3 championships with Kobe Bryant. So where did he rank him among the best players since Michael Jordan? We will get into that as well. Back here with the voice of Monday Night Football, John Gruden here with us, dropping knowledge. And John, let's talk a little bit about the team that lost the Super Bowl last year, the Panthers, reigning MVP, Cam Newton. He's going to be looking for revenge as his offense getting their #1 receiver back in Kelvin Benjamin. Will the Panthers get back to the Super Bowl this season, you think?
I would bet on them. If I were going to pick one team in the NFC, I would start with the Carolina Panthers. Obviously, Cam Newton, the quarterback, and the quarterback of their defense, Luke Kuechly, those two guys are at the top of their game. They haven't lost a lot of players other than Josh Norman in the secondary, but they do get Benjamin back. I think they're going to win the South, get to the tournament, get a home game, and they're a tough team to prepare for because of all the things that Cam Newton can do.
Coach, explain to us in hindsight, why did the Carolina Panthers lose the Super Bowl to the Denver Broncos? What specifically can you dissect for us that transpired that caused them to lose the way that they did?
I think part of it was Wade Phillips had 2 weeks to prepare for Carolina. This is the toughest team to prepare for. You don't know what to even practice for. Read options, speed options, reverses, bombs. I mean, they run all kind of different plays, and they can do it in a no-huddle offense. So they had a lot of time to prepare a great game plan, and they had 3 Pro Bowl secondary people, Chris Harris, Aqib Talib, T.J. Ward, and they can get after you with the pass rush. They were able to load the box, get an extra defender in there for Newton, and they had a great plan. I think that had a lot to do with it.
Coach, talking about some young quarterbacks in the NFC, I know it's very early, no regular season games have been played yet, and yet we do have some new information. For example, Goff's not even going to dress for week 1. Wentz is starting, and Prescott's taken the world by storm now and has the opportunity because of Romo's injury. What is your impression, first, of the fact that Goff is not even dressing for the game?
Honestly, I can't say I'm really surprised after spending a few days with Jared Goff. True junior. He did not redshirt, came out as a true junior. He's just 21 years old, I think. And the offense that he came from really didn't have much of a snap count, never been in a huddle. Totally foreign to him what he's doing now as a pro quarterback. Going to take a little time. I don't think it's going to take long. I would think 4 to 5 weeks into the season, you'll see Goff. But Prescott, he reminded me of a young Donovan McNabb. He really did. I coached McNabb in the Senior Bowl when I was coaching the Oakland Raiders. There are some similarities between the two of those guys.
Like what, for example?
Well, they're dual threats. They're finishers. You know, Prescott, he got it done at Mississippi State. How are they doing without Prescott? I think they just lost to South Alabama. He put that program on his back, and he improved year by year by year as a passer. He threw the ball much better than people think his last year in Starkville, and he's a great competitor, and he's hard to defend now.
Hold on, because you're making me nervous. You're sounding to me like
there he is.
you're sounding to me like you are caught up in Dak Prescott like the second coming, and that we should expect great things from the Dallas Cowboys because Dak Prescott is behind center. Is that what you're saying, John Gruden?
I think I just said he reminds me of Donovan McNabb. Now, if you remember, Stephen, McNabb didn't start as a rookie. They started Doug Peterson, who was the head coach of the Eagles. Yep. So I said he reminds me of a young Donovan McNabb. That's what I said. I don't know what you heard, but I can replay it, or somebody there at ESPN has the tape. I'm sure they can replay it for you.
Speaking of Doug Peterson, you'd think, given his that Chase Daniel maybe would get some starts.
I couldn't wait for that.
But Carson Wentz is getting the starts. What's your impression of the Philadelphia Eagles quarterback situation?
You know, I love this game. Cleveland Browns against the Philadelphia Eagles. Can you imagine if Carson Wentz shreds Cleveland? Cleveland's got to be nervous about that because they had a chance to take a quarterback. They better hope Robert Griffin plays well against Philadelphia. That's going to be interesting to watch. But if you watch Carson Wentz play against Tampa in the first preseason game, he got beat up bad. I can see why he broke his ribs. I thought he was going to break other bones. It's a good thing they got him out of there when they did. I don't know how healthy he is. I don't know where he is in terms of the overall understanding of the Eagles' offense, but he better take better care of himself. Remember, he got hurt playing at Dakota.
Coach, I mean, we've been on the air together for a little while here, almost a half hour, and we've talked about quarterbacks, we've talked about teams. I can't believe I'm on the air with John Gruden, and John Gruden's talking about quarterbacks, and not one time did he mention the bad man that he is, Aaron Rodgers, who, by the way, is getting Jordy Nelson back. So when we talk about greatness, I'm supposed to be talking about a great coach who happens to be a great analyst that didn't bring up the greatest quarterback in the game today. Could you explain yourself about what you think about Aaron Rodgers and why you haven't brought him up in a whole half hour you've been on this show?
Well, I love being on this show. This is as hard as my heart has pumped since we won the Super Bowl. I mean, I love this. Aaron Rodgers is a combination of quickness. He's mentally quick. He's got arm quickness, and man, can this guy move his feet quick. I love that about him. What I like the most about A-Rod is Mike McCarthy is back calling the plays. You can say Nelson is coming back. You can say all you want to say. What I love the most about the Green Bay Packers is I like the fact McCarthy's back calling the plays. That's going to make a huge difference.
Is Rodgers still the best quarterback in the game, Coach?
Be hard to go against Rodgers, but I like the guy up in Seattle as well. I've seen Rodgers and Russell Wilson go head-to-head in the postseason, in the regular season. Just hard to defend guys that are that sharp mentally, that can move and get out of trouble like they can. I'd probably go with Russell Wilson just because he's younger. I could have him for a longer period of time.
You bring up Russell Wilson, and we've discussed him earlier in the show. He went from like this perfect game manager with speed to something that seems to me different. Second half of last year, to a crazy kind of playmaker, an MVP-level quarterback, and yet still doesn't really, they don't use him maybe as much as he might be used, especially with Doug Baldwin. What was the difference in the second half of last season in terms of his maturation?
I mean, you lose Jimmy Graham, you lose Marshawn Lynch. Your offensive line, they have 5 new starters on their line this year. They have one thing going, I think, on offense, and it's that quarterback. He's unbelievable. They're able to get into a no-back set, put 5 receivers, backs, tight ends, whatever you want to call them. Just put them out in a route and have them run around, and nobody blocks. It's no problem. Russell Wilson, he dodges 2 guys. He can throw it, run it. Unbelievable player, playmaker, and the more people that you spread out to cover down on these receivers, the more space you create, and he's proven he is hard to tackle.
Coach, the Carolina Panthers are the reigning NFC champions. They have the reigning league MVP. They're a big physical bunch, according to Coach Herm Edwards, which is why they're obviously formidable. When we think about the NFC and we scour it, I'm not picking anybody from the NFC East as being a threat. I'm sorry. I'm just allergic to doing such a thing. But I will look at Green Bay with Aaron Rodgers. I will look at Arizona with the crew that they have led by Bruce Arians. And I will look at the Seattle Seahawks because of Russell Wilson, because of Pete Carroll and that defense. Who should Carolina be most concerned about in terms of trying to come out of the NFC again?
Well, I think you mentioned the obvious teams. That's really good homework that you did there. But I'd be leery. I'd be leery of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Let me tell you about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Stephen A. They got a quarterback. Jameis Winston, all you got to do is turn on the film. The guy is going to be a great player.
Second year.
They can run the ball with Doug Martin. And they have two big-time receivers. I love Mike Evans. And they're going to be better on defense, I think, with Mike Smith, the ex-head coach of the Atlanta Falcons. They've done a nice job in the preseason. There's a lot of confidence coming out of there. Jameis Winston against Cam Newton on Monday Night Football, that's going to be a good one.
Coach, it's so much fun having you on the show, and obviously we love the NFL expertise.
But
I just want you to know you have an open invitation to join us anytime.
Oh, no, open invitation. He challenged me, Molly, to an hour, and I'm waiting for that challenge. I took some hits today.
Keep doing the homework.
I took some hits today, Coach Gruden, and you got me a little bit today. I'm going to get you back, though. I'm going to get you back.
Well, next time, no quarterback talk. Let's throw me some tougher subjects because I'm going to show you how versatile I am, how ready I am.
No softballs, Stephen A. No, we so appreciate it. Coach, we'll see you on Monday night. We can't wait for that season
Great
finale
job,
here.
Coach. Thank you.
Thanks, Coach.
All right, guys. Have a good one.
So, another day, another opinion on Colin Kaepernick's controversial decision not to stand up for the national anthem over the past few weeks. Today's opinion comes from Team USA hockey coach John Tortorella, who told our Linda Cohn, quote, "When I asked Team USA coach John Tortorella about Kaepernick protest, he told me if any of my players sit on the bench for the national anthem, they will sit there the rest of the game." Linda says Tortorella will be on SportsCenter later today. She'll ask him more about his comments to further explain. Stephen A., what's your reaction to what he said about his players will sit the whole game?
I think it's shameful. I'll go as far as to say that I think it's un-American. And I think that if this is the coach of Team USA and he's taking that position, then he should be stripped of his duties and he shouldn't be allowed to represent the United States of America. And I mean that sincerely. I'm not casting any personal aspersions on John Tortorella. I do not know him. I don't recall ever meeting him, maybe one time when he used to coach the Rangers and I was at the Garden doing a radio show or whatever. But I don't know him from a can of paint. I'm not casting any aspersions on his character or anything like that. I'm only speaking about this particular issue and incident itself. Let's be clear about something here. I've been on the record talking about how if the NFL wanted to insist that people stand for the national anthem or whatever, it's perfectly within their right to do so. They are a private industry. They are looking for millions upon millions of Americans to patronize their product. I understand that. If the NBA were to do such a thing, which they do, I understand that. You're a private industry. But when you talk Team USA, that's the red, white, and blue. That's the United States of America. All right? That's not private entities or anything like that. That's the United States of America. So think about that for a second. You have the United States Constitution. The First Amendment specifically stipulates the freedom of speech. This is what Colin Kaepernick chose to do. You are saying that if he chose to exercise his right as an American citizen, you, representing the United States, would then turn around and punish him for the very rights this country has bestowed upon its citizens? If that is not un-American, I don't know what is. So as far as I'm concerned, the problem is not with Colin Kaepernick here. It is with John Tortorella, who should be stripped of his title as coach of Team USA unless he changes his stance. He has absolutely, unequivocally no right whatsoever to bench any of his players who elects to exercise their First Amendment rights, because when you are a member of Team USA, you are proudly representing the red, white, and blue and all that it stands for, not just the parts you like. And that's the key point to make here. If it's the NFL or a private entity like MLB or NBA, that's entirely different. Not Team USA. The problem is not with Kaepernick here. It's not with any players who wants to emulate the stance that Colin Kaepernick took. It is with John Tortorella. And I'm glad and I'm proud that Linda Cohen, our colleague here at ESPN, obviously does the outstanding job that she always does. And she interviewed him because she knows her hockey.
No question.
It's really disappointing to hear him say that because, again, this is not about hockey. It's not about the national anthem. It's about your right to take the position that you want to take without having to worry about repercussions or ramifications of the like. As a member of Team USA, for him to boldly state that, I believe he should have to apologize publicly immediately because I'm hearing he's going to be interviewed on SportsCenter within the hour. He should have to apologize immediately, or he should be stripped of his title as coach of Team USA.
I understand if the United States is in an international competition where the coach of Team USA might say, look, on the one hand, we should be proud to protest even publicly, even globally on an international stage because it points out that the way we do things is actually the right way. You're not allowed dissent in many of the countries against whom we compete. You are allowed dissent in this country, and we should be proud of that. However, I also understand if the idea is, look, if you do that, this can serve as propaganda against the United States by authoritarian regimes and worse. So maybe if Team USA is involved in international competition, let's all stand for the American flag and present the united front to the rest of the world and not air our dirty laundry in international competition. All that said, I totally agree with the idea that this is an abuse of power. And the question is, why does he feel so comfortable? Like, there are covert abuses of power. That's in secret. Yep. Little pressure that you can exert in the workplace and in other places in subtle ways and not so subtle ways that kind of maintain the status quo. If you support the status quo, we all stand for the national anthem. That's one thing that we all do. But when it crosses over to an overt message, to overt pressure, when the coach feels comfortable enough to say, it's not just behind closed doors that I'm going to create this kind of atmosphere that exerts pressure for everyone to behave the way I want them to, but I am actually going to explicitly state that this is what I'll do if you don't. The question is, why does he feel comfortable enough in his position of power to abuse his power in that way?
Okay.
And I think one of the answers is that people who support the status quo see the cultural landscape shifting underneath their feet and don't like it, and feel that now is the time to insist on their view of cultural norms. This is the way it should be, and I will exercise my power overtly, explicitly, in order to maintain the status quo. And when you do that, you get yourself in trouble. Here, I agree. He's made it explicit, and he has crossed the line.
He's crossed the line, with no question about it, and I appreciate you saying that. And, listen, this is a debate show, and Max and I are going to be in a lot of conflicts.
Yeah.
But there are times when you not only agree, but you need to agree on certain things. I really, really would implore citizens of the United States of America, sports fans everywhere, to think about the magnitude of this man's statement. I will bench you if you don't stand for the national anthem. Now, in fairness to Tortorella, I'm told one of his children serves in the military. I'm not sure about that. I think because I was on Good Morning America this morning, and I think the great Robin Roberts, the wonderful Robin Roberts, I think she mentioned something about his son has served or is serving. So, in fairness to him, let's be fair by mentioning there's a heightened level of sensitivity that he may have. My response to that is you'd have a legitimate argument if Colin Kaepernick said, bump the military, I can't stand our country, I can't stand who we represent, and the hell with the military too. He specifically stated that's not what this was about. He was talking about police brutality against African Americans and people of color. Now, we can argue that. I usually say brutality on the part of some police officers because I want to give most of the police officers the benefit of the doubt because they do protect and serve our communities and do a wonderful job. But that's what he was alluding to. He specifically stated that. It actually wasn't alluding to it. He stated it. So if he stated that, and he said it wasn't the military, and he then followed that up by getting on a knee to make sure the military men and women in San Diego last week, he made sure to try to honor and respect them. then there's no cause for Tortorella to have this position at this juncture. The fact that he does speaks to a level of privilege as a white individual, highly insensitive to the plight of black people, and then he's taking it a step further by literally telling you and enunciating what he will do to you if you don't share his sentiment and his position. It speaks to what America is not supposed to be about. This man has to apologize or he has to be removed as coach.
There is a conflation going on that Professor Michael Eric Dyson beautifully articulates in his most current, his
article on
the Undefeated,
right,
that there's a conflation between nationalism and patriotism. Nationalism, America, love it or leave it. And this goes for nationalism anywhere. My nation is great no matter what because it's my nation. Versus patriotism, specifically American patriotism, which is love for the country. America, love it, so if there's something wrong, change it. And here, Tortorella is conflating nationalism with patriotism and insisting that patriotism must be nationalism. No, it mustn't.
Yep.
Must not.
Very well said. And Dr. Michael Eric Dyson, his piece is on the Undefeated right now if you want to check that out. I'd love to hear what the players have to say. I'd be interested to hear what Team USA, that hockey team, their thoughts on after hearing the comments. Coming up after the break, Shaq is here. You don't want to miss it.
This is Shaquille O'Neal, and I'm coming up on First Take. Stephen A., I got the tissue for you, baby. Don't cry. Dry your eye. Here comes Shaq, and I'm not a little guy.
To me, he talked about being disrespected. The great ones, what do they do when they feel like they've been disrespected? They elevate their game. They need him to attack, 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 and it starts tonight. Irving and Curry, one-on-one. Irving puts it up. It's good! Kyrie Irving from downtown! Rebound taken by Iguodala. Iguodala to Curry, back to Iguodala, up for the layup. Oh, blocked by James! James out of nowhere, skies to the rim.
Like Coach Jackson said, he's a bad, bad man.
Taken by Spades, final seconds. It's over! It's over! The Cavs are the world champions. Coming back from 3 games to 1 down. They reel off 3 to win it. And the celebration in Cleveland has begun.
I'm home. I'm home. This is what I came back for. I'm at a loss for words. This is unbelievable. It doesn't feel real right now.
So the Cavs title this year ended a 52-year championship drought for the city of Cleveland, but it also continued another streak. For the 33rd straight year, either Shaquille O'Neal or somebody who has played with Shaq played for the NBA championship. Let's take you through the years starting back in the 83-84 season. Now stay with me here, people. Greg Kite, Byron Scott, Kite again, Scott for 2 more years, and John Sally for 2 years, Horace Grant for 3 years, Robert Horry for 2 years, Steve Kerr for 4 years, Shaq with a three-peat, Kerr again with Steve Smith, Eldon Campbell, Horry again, Shaq again, Horry again, bunch of his Celtics, and then Kobe and Fisher for 2 straight. Sasha Pavlovich, bunch of Heat players for 2 straight, Boris Diaw, Danny Green, Barbosa, and then last year, LeBron James and Mo Williams. So we welcome the connection to 33 straight NBA titles, 4-time NBA championship, and member of the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame class of 2016, Shaquille O'Neal, who joins us on behalf of Zales Jewelers to unveil the newly designed Hall of Fame ring, which will be presented to each inductee, in the class of 2016. Shaq, good morning.
I didn't hear that, Molly. Could you repeat that? What you just said?
Yeah, would you like me to slow it down for you?
No, but this is the ring.
It's a beauty.
Man, yeah, that's right. Turn it so, put a zoom in there so I can see it. Is it big enough to fit?
Can't see that.
Is it big enough to fit those fingers of yours?
Yes, it is, but I'm not allowed to put it on yet because they haven't called my name. You know how we do, Steve, and I want to earn it. When they call my name, then it's official.
Well, you certainly have, much deserved, and that ring is a beauty by Zale. Shaq, before these guys get into it with you, I need you to break something down for me. Now, I just documented your storied career, but you told The Vertical we only saw 30% of your real game. How is that possible?
Stephen A. knows this. I was the first big guy to bring it down off the backboard and take it down coast to coast with style. Cross people up, did that every now and then just so you guys would show it on ESPN. But I really had all those attributes in my game. But because of the double and triple team, I never really got to show it. So that's what I mean when I said that statement. You know, it's much more than Shaq to just blowing people in the mouth and throwing them down and throwing it down with force. Ain't that right, Max?
No question.
Shaq, let me ask you this question, man. I mean, going into the Hall of Fame.
Don't try and be nice. No, don't try and be nice. It's my first time on the show. Come with it.
Well, first of all, it's not your first time. It's your first time on a new show. But let me say that. Listen, I'll get into it in a second. I'll get into it in a second, okay?
Careful what you wish for,
I'm trying to be nice to start this off. You're getting ready to go into a Hall of Fame. As you reflect on your career, talk about what this means to you and why it means so much to you.
You know, when I first started playing basketball, I was cut my freshman and sophomore year. 6'9", couldn't dunk, couldn't play. Thought about giving up. But, you know, because I watched Dr. J and Magic and Larry Bird and guys like that, the dream continued. And then I met Coach Brown, and he offered me a scholarship right there on the spot. I was a terrible player. Went to Texas, made a name for myself. Went to LSU, played behind Chris and Stan. Still wasn't as good as I would like to be. Stan and Chris left. I got my chance to shine. Had a great college career. And when I came into the NBA, I knew that I was going to have to work, but I wanted to create my own niche. I was like, you know what? I'm not going to be out here shooting jumpers. Not going to be doing fadeaways. I think I can get away with the power game. You know, I played against a lot of great centers, but they were on their way out. You know, Patrick Ewing, who we had a lot of battles with, he was on his way out. Same thing with David Robinson. But, you know, it was a lot of great centers for me to, you know, test my theory with. And I was able to do it, and I was able to do it my way. And I had good, honest people in the media, such as yourself, Stephen A. Like, when I didn't play up to par, you would let me know. And, you know, I had so much respect for you and, you know, guys like Dan Patrick, that when I heard that, I took that to heart, because I know you guys are very, very respectful, and you only talk about what you see. So I wanted to come in and just, you know, take over that power niche. They didn't want to shoot fadeaways. They didn't want to have a finesse game. I knew that if I came and played this way, I knew that I could possibly dominate.
You think that power game would still work in this NBA, Shaq?
It sure would. If you're paying Mike Conley $153, you got to pay me $353 tax-free. For 2 years, Stephen A.
Shaq, when we reflect on your career, we're going to see somebody. I consider you the most dominant force of the modern day era. We haven't seen anybody as dominant as you since Wilt Chamberlain. But I will ask you this question, because you were on the record just a few weeks ago making some news when you talked about Tim Duncan. You talked about how he wasn't a true big man because he's a power forward. You're on national television. Elaborate on that, because when we think about Tim Duncan, we think about a big boy who's obviously a five-time champion and garners respect. When you said that, you put yourself in a different class than him. Explain.
Well, you know, when people ask who are the greatest big men to ever play the game, you never hear power forward's name. So I was under the impression that big men was always centers. You know, I've heard you say many times the greatest big men, Kareem, Wilt, Bill Russell, maybe Akeem, then maybe me. Now, you hear a lot of other people say Tim Duncan is the greatest power forward to ever play the game. I agree with that. So I just don't want people to get mixed up with power forward and center. I know now the All-Star ballot, they don't, you know, they have front court and back court because, you know, you got, you know, centers playing stretch fours and stretch fives, but he came in as a four. David Robinson was the center. The other guy, Rashawn Netrovic, was the center. Tim Duncan played the four spot. So that's what I meant when I said that. Wasn't trying to be disrespectful. Never be disrespectful. The guy is a great player. He has five, but I always thought he was a power forward. Because, again, when you say who's the greatest big men to ever play the game, you never hear power forwards. They don't say Barkley. They don't say Malone. And those guys were fabulous players. They say Kareem, Wilt, and Bill Russell, big men. And we are big men.
Shaq, isn't there a difference with Duncan in the sense that he could play with his back to the basket, he could defend the rim, he did spend years, several years at least, not most of them, listed as a center. You still wouldn't call him a big man?
He was never listed as a center every time I played against him. I always played against David Robinson and the other guy. I'm sure, like, you know, later in his career he was center, but when he came in, he was at the power forward position. But it is what it is. You know, I said it because I feel I have the right to say it. You know, as a guy that's played and a guy that played the big man position. And again, as a youngster, they say, hey, the greatest big men to ever play the game, big men, and they always listed centers for that position.
Shaq, going into the Hall of Fame, obviously you're going to be somebody, regardless of your individual dominance, who is forever associated with one Kobe Bryant. So much has been made about your relationship with Kobe Bryant. I want you to talk about not only where it is today, but why was there ever a problem between you and Kobe Bryant? Explain that in your own words, please.
I don't think it was a problem, and I think it was a problem that we both needed. You know, every leader knows that, you know, in a leadership position, you have to focus on two things. You got to focus on the task, or you have to focus on the relationship. And when I was appointed the leader of the Laker team, the only thing I was focusing on, Stephen A., was the task. And, you know, a lot of times when you focus on the task, relationship dwindles. Now, when I went to Miami, I focused on the relationship with D-Wade. We had a great relationship, and we were only able to win one. And then, of course, I got traded after that. But, you know, we were two guys that pushed each other. And I think when you got two great players on the same team pushing each other, everything else will fall in place. And, you know, a lot of people talk as if we didn't win any championships. We won 3 out of 4. So, you know, if I had all over to do again, I'd do the same thing, and I'm sure he would do the same thing also.
I still feel compelled to ask you this question in terms of where whatever friction started, because we hear stories about Kobe coming into the league. We hear about you guys playing at Loyola Marymount or wherever it was that y'all were playing, and how you were tempted to try and slap him upside his head, and that he never forgave you for that. And that's where things started in terms of the hostilities or whatever the case may be. Any truth to that? Anything that you would like to explain, to clarify, in terms of how your relationship started, in terms of it falling apart to some degree before y'all ultimately got it back together?
Well, you know, it started when people started asking the question, whose team was it? You know, rather than just going out and, you know, playing together like the Spurs. Like, you know, throughout the Spurs' dominant reign, you never heard people say, oh, it's Parker's team, it's Duncan's team. You know, I think living in L.A., you know, we were more worried about the title of whose team it is. And then, you know, me being a traditional big guy, you know, it was always my thought process, you got to play the game inside out. And sometimes I wasn't comfortable with the dribbling between the legs and just shooting and me not touching the ball. So, and you know, I'm sure he was, you know, not comfortable with just coming down and, you know, throwing the ball into me, and then, you know, hopefully I throw it back out. But again, it worked out for the best. I say this now, and we are the most dominant 1-2 punch, little guy, big guy ever created. Ever created. And
Shaq.
I know it's been a lot of like guards and centers, but we are the best Laker 1-2 punch ever created.
Shaq, I saw you guys at Staples once Dwight Howard was on the Lakers, and the way you two hugged it out just looked different to me, as though you guys looked at each other and thought, boy, I didn't know what I had until it was gone. Is that the relationship now with Kobe? Do you remember that moment when you saw each other at Staples once Dwight was on the Lakers?
I do. I remember that situation, but I can't elaborate on it because snitches get stitches, Max. You know how it is. No, but it's just like, you know, you don't know how good you got something until it's gone. Like, you know, when I left that, and, you know, and like, you know, when I left L.A., I got D-Wade, similar type player, but like when I went on after that, I was like, you know what? I had the greatest player ever. We could have won 6, 7 championships together. You know, you live and you learn.
Shaq, you mentioned Miami earlier. Pat Riley recently said the Shaq acquisition was bigger than the LeBron acquisition. What's your reaction to that?
I mean, I think I was one of the reasons why the Miami culture became what it was. A lot of people don't know, but before I got there, the whole top tier was roped off. And, you know, it was I that convinced Pat. It was like, Pat, let me get about 40 floor seats. And, you know, we put out some calls. You know, we called Denzel, we called Puffy, we called Khaled and said, hey, come to Miami. It's a great city. Have fun. And then, you know, after that, it started blowing up. But, you know, the acquisition of the big three, they just added on to that. So imagine like just a plain martini, and then you add the olive, and then you add all the other stuff.
Shaq, let me tune into the analyst that is Shaquille O'Neal right now, as opposed to just the Hall of Famer. One of the things I've talked about when it comes to Pat Riley is that in the last couple of years, you've lost LeBron James, You've now lost Dwayne Wade. There's some friction, obviously, over the health issues of Chris Bosh in terms of Chris Bosh being ready to play and Pat Riley and the Miami Heat, not really commenting on that. My position is Pat Riley is great. He's the winner within. He's accomplished a great deal of things. However, at the same time, because he's old school and it's about doing things his way, he may have ultimately alienated the preeminent superstar in the game in LeBron James and ultimately a guy that helped him capture 2 championships in Dwayne Wade. Talk to us for a second about Pat Riley and how accurate of a depiction you think that is of him. A winner, a good man, incredibly accomplished, but at the same time old school at times to a fault. To that you say what?
I agree with everything you say, but another thing about Pat Riley is he's honest. When he says he's going to do something, he's going to do it. And Pat Riley is all about the team. You could be a great player, you could have done a lot, but if it doesn't work out for the team, then he's going to make a decision. He put me in that position when I was there. My contract was up, and I could have signed, I think it was 100 for 5. Oh, no, 120 for 5. And then Pat came in and said, look, we love you. You could take the 120 for 5, or you could take 100 for 5 and let me bring in Gary, Antoine, help Posey, let me help you get a championship. So what I liked about that situation is that he was honest, he was straight up, and that's just how Pat is. Pat's not going to change. He's been very successful doing it his way. But again, he's all about the organization first.
Shaq, since Jordan, we've seen you, we've seen Olajuwon, Kobe, LeBron. Who is the greatest player in the post-Michael Jordan era?
Well, first, I got to give it up to Dr. J. A lot of people don't talk about Dr. J, but Dr. J, to me, is the creator of all that. But to answer your question, Max, because I really do love you more than I love Stephen A. Smith.
Stop lying.
I'm going to say...
Stop lying.
It's because you're a basketball player, not a boxer.
Yeah, you're right. Well, I am a boxer. I beat up Oscar De La Hoya, and I beat up Sugar Shane Mosley.
That's true.
But, yes,
that's going out on a limb, considering that you got him about 200 pounds and about 2 feet.
So
there you
what?
go. There you go, you bully.
They stepped in the ring. But anyway, I'm going to go with Michael Jordan. I mean, like, I've seen Kobe, I've seen LeBron, seen Grant Hill, Penny Hardaway, but Michael was like a god on the court. Like, first time we played against Michael, I actually seen him go up to a player and tell the player what he was going to do. Hey, I'm going to dribble between my legs left. I'm going to pump fake. If you go for it if you want to, but I'm a shooter that's going to be all that. And he did it. And from that point there, I knew he was real.
But, Shaq, I'm asking since Jordan. I think we accept Jordan is one. I want to know where you think you fit in with Olajuwon, LeBron, and Kobe. Who is number 1 since Jordan?
I'll probably have to go with the Copester, because, his attitude was Jordan-like. Like, he was able to, take over games, especially in the fourth quarter. For example, like, when I tested Kobe out for his last game, I said, Kobe, I need you to hit 50. He said, nah, I'm not going to do it. But when he saw me there and he started going, like, he said, you know what? You want me to get 50, big dog? I'll do it for you. And he's always had that ability because, it'll be times in games, especially in the playoffs, where I'm not really going or I'm tired. And I'll be like, Kobe, I need you to take over. And he would take over every time. 50 out of 50 times. Like, it was never a time where I asked Kobe to take over the game and he didn't perform. So to answer your question, I got to go with the Copester.
My last question, Shaquille O'Neal, is this. During your career, particularly during the three-peat years, you called the Sacramento Kings the Sacramento Queens. How the hell do you go from calling them the Sacramento Queens to being an owner of the Sacramento Kings? A part of them.
Vivek is a good friend of mine. Mark Mastro is a good friend of mine. And I always wanted to own a team, and that opportunity came up. And, obviously I'm not, the main go-to guy when it comes to owning a team, but I just wanted to be part of a team with a great group. And, those guys are a great group. We're struggling a little bit right now, but, we're learning from our mistakes, and hopefully we will become a contender like we used to be back in the day. But, that was all done for marketing. They had a lot of guys, and we had a lot of great battles, and I just wanted people to tune in to watch that game, and it worked.
It worked. You're right. It did work.
We certainly tuned in to watch all your games. Loved watching you play, Shaq. Now love watching you break down the games as an analyst. We so appreciate you being here. Come join us anytime. These two are a lot.
He's not welcome.
A lot for
He's
me
not
to
welcome.
handle.
He's not
Open
welcome.
invite
Shaq
anytime,
is
Shaq.
as good on TV as he was on the court.
Right, but seriously, I read your lengthy resume earlier. Congrats, HOFer now, much
He's trying to
deserved.
flex his muscle.
Enjoy the festivities this week. Stephen A. always has to take over.
I'll see you
He's
Friday,
stealing your
man.
shine.
I'll see you Friday,
All right,
man.
brother. Love you.
All right,
Thank
boss.
you. All right, Max.
Thanks, Shaq.
A little over 2 months after giving Andrew Luck the biggest contract in NFL history, Colts owner Jim Irsay says he's still concerned about the team being able to protect Andrew Luck. So the Eagle game was concerning, and until we prove otherwise, we're going to be tested every play. We protect Andrew, good things are going to happen. Stephen A., do you feel like Irsay's making excuses for his quarterback?
Well, you know, here's how I look at it. When we think about Irsay, I don't think it's excuses. I think it's reality. When you look at him, let's call it let's call it like we see it. Andrew Luck has been on suicide watch, for crying out loud, for the first 3 years of his career. Had a lacerated kidney, had an abdominal strain or tear last year. He missed about 9 games, missed the last 7 games. We know what he's been through and what have you. But when you look at Andrew Luck, let's be clear about something here. 55 games, his last 55 games, he's thrown 55 interceptions, okay? And he's lost 14 of 32 fumbles. That's 69 turnovers in 55 games. So guess what? He could sit up there and you look at it and you can say, hey, the offensive line, you can make any excuse all you want to. I know how Max feels about Andrew Luck. We know, I believe he's a bad boy. I think he was worthy of being the #1 overall pick, but let me be clear. There's no excuses to lean on. Andrew Luck has to get it done. And unlike some people I know, I'm not that convinced that this year is going to be that year.
He's going to win the MVP this year.
Really? Hold on,
Yep.
stop.
Say that again?
Pump the presses.
Yep.
Slow down.
Andrew Luck is going to be the NFL MVP. He's already performed at MVP levels when he led the league in touchdowns 2 years ago, or have we already forgotten? Remember, Peyton was on pace, got hurt, because that's what happens to old quarterbacks, and Andrew led in total touchdowns with 40 over Peyton Manning's 39, just like Cam led last year with 45 over Tom Brady's 39. The older guys going down, it's the young bucks. I mean, we already may be in the Cam Newton, Andrew Luck era, which is, it was just a matter of time. Irsay is not making excuses here, any more than the weatherman is making excuses for the sun if he says it's going to be cloudy. I mean, the fact of the matter is, as Adam Schefter and Chris Mortensen pointed out in a very good article last year, that the Colts have not invested anything in their offensive line. In a salary cap league where everyone gets the draft picks, everyone has the same money.
Drafted Ryan Kelly, first round pick.
Okay, this year, until this year, they had never used anything. The most they've done was a second-round draft pick on an offensive lineman. They were 30th out of 32 teams in what they spent on the offensive line in terms of money, so they're not devoting their resources there. This year, 2 of their top 3 picks were O-linemen. They don't usually come in. It's really more of a skills position than people realize. They don't come in and make an impact off the bat. It takes a season or two. Andrew Luck took over a 2-14 team, went 11-5, 11-5, 11-5, and led the league in touchdowns. And then last year gets hurt. They go 8-8 and miss the playoffs for the first time in his career. 8-8, no playoffs when Andrew Luck is hurt. I know they weren't great when he was in. He wasn't having a great season anyway. He has no offensive line. That's the reason he struggled recently.
Let's also add a running game, because even though we respect the hell out of Frank Gore, he is 32 years of age. He ran for 967 yards last year, but he's not an elusive back. He's somebody, first of all, you can't let people penetrate the backfield because he's not elusive and he can't get around that. So first you got to protect. Your offensive line not only has to protect Andrew Luck,
for the run,
but they've got to block for the run so he can gain momentum while by the time he gets to the line of scrimmage, so he can actually gain some yards. If you don't have a stout running game, and you have a questionable offensive line, then all you have is a situation where you're looking at Andrew Luck to come and save the day, which is why I do not believe he's going to be the league MVP.
Well, I mean, until last year when he got hurt, he did save the day. He went on teams that weren't very good. They were the class of the division. 11 wins every year.
The year before last, because he
3 consecutive years, 11-5, and a playoff berth. 3 consecutive years, and he's the whole offense.
Listen.
Jim Fassel said last year,
okay,
Andrew Luck is going to be the greatest quarterback of all time. When he was still in college, other credible people were looking at him saying that guy is going to be the greatest quarterback ever. And what you notice is the closer people get to him, the more high their opinion of him becomes. That also tells me something. When people, the closer they get, real football people going, that guy. I asked Aaron Rodgers before last season started, who do you think takes over from you as the best quarterback in football? He said Andrew Luck.
Well, he could say
Turned
that,
out to be Cam Newton, but that's going to be the debate from now on.
That means he was wrong, which means he has the potential to be wrong again. Let's also not forget the fact that you have to depend on Grigson, okay, and Pagano getting along and being in concert with one another to give Andrew Luck the weapons that are necessary. We can't ignore that either. So, again, they're on a come up. If their offensive line becomes stout, you've got the potential to be right. But until then, the jury is still out, my brother. We don't know this, not to mention the fact that Andrew Luck has been turnover prone. I just set up this and you gave me a whole bunch of wishful thinking. You know I keep bringing up Kings of Comedy, Cedric the Entertainer. We wish, as opposed to we hope. We don't know. But in the end, what it comes down to is 69 turnovers in 55 games. And I'm not knocking Andrew Luck, because I believe in him. I'm just not so certain I believe in him as much as you do. Number one, at this juncture. Number two, because of the injuries. And number three, because I don't trust Grigson and Pagano together.
Yes.
The situation itself. We can't ignore that.
The Colts got rid of Peyton Manning for Andrew Luck. Peyton threw 55 touchdowns one season, followed that up with 39, followed that up with a Super Bowl win. And the Colts made the right decision.
I agree with
that.
That's
how gangster this guy is.
That's not about gangster.
Yes, it is.
No.
Yes,
I agree that they made the right decision, but you're addicted to this word gangster. I don't know if it's the Untouchables, it's Law and Order.
That's right.
I don't know what the hell's going on with you. But,
hold on, Brick. I don't play a gangster on TV.
But I don't mention it as much as you do, which is what makes me shocked. But what I'm saying to you is this. You keep bringing that stuff up. I get all of that. Those are arguments that I made in the past. The difference between you and I is that you're bloviating to a point where you think Andrew Luck has already arrived and you're not taking the ancillary parts into consideration.
Okay, well, except
you got to take those things
except that if you go, I've been saying, like, it's the two blue chip guys of this era, Andrew Luck and Cam Newton, that's the era we're in. It's like Mickey Mantle and Willie Mays. People
why you keep
this out
mentioning Andrew Luck and Cam Newton without Russell Wilson?
2 and 14 without him. You add one piece, and 2 and 14 becomes 11 and 5. And in case you thought that was coincidence, it was fluky, he repeats 11 and 5 the next year and 11 and 5 the next year. And in case you think that was fluky, the year he gets hurt, 8 and 8, no playoffs. So one thing is consistent here. When you have Andrew Luck at quarterback, even without an offensive line, even without a running game, you win 11 games and go to the playoffs.
Yeah, and the bad part about it is I agree with your argument, but except for how you're making it, because you're ignoring the key points. You're acting like he just got there and it didn't matter what he was going to get. Playing in the AFC South before last season actually did help.
Yeah.
I mean, I love how you leave that out.
It was a joke. It's gotten
I love
so much
how you
better.
leave that out.
He's
It was a joke for years.
But I don't think anything sneaky about it. He's really athletic.
I'm saying for being such a good pocket passer, the way he can run, people underestimate that.
40 touchdowns, led the league.
When we come back, he went #1 in the NFL draft, but will he will be inactive for week 1. But does this prove the Rams made a mistake? We get into it.
First Take is brought to you by Dick's Sporting Goods, proud to employ and support hundreds of Team USA contenders.
The Rams made a huge splash this offseason when they traded up to get the #1 overall pick in the draft, selecting Cal quarterback Jared Goff. That pick is now looking questionable because Goff is currently listed as the 3rd QB on the Rams roster behind starter Case Keenum and backup Sean Mannion. Head coach Jeff Fisher told NFL Network that Goff will be inactive for the season opener against the Niners on Monday night. Goff finished the preseason completing only 22 of 49 passes for 232 yards with 2 touchdowns and 4 turnovers. Stephen A., does Goff being inactive appear that the Rams made a mistake here?
It appears that way, but the jury is still out. We don't want to sit up there and engage in condemnation about this kid who's a true junior coming out of college and being thrusted into this situation. It is a bit odd that he's not on the active roster. The fact that he's not on the active roster, I don't even know the name of the #2 dude that they have in front of him. Mannion. Who the hell is Mannion? So, I didn't know whether it was Mannion or Onion or something. I didn't know. I don't know who the hell it is. I'm not knocking him, but my Lord, I've never heard of him in my life.
It's not Onion. Just to clarify, it's Mannion, not Onion. So glad we cleared that
So let's get his name right. I mean, this guy is ahead of the #1 overall pick. I'm not going to condemn Jared Goff. I'm going to condemn Jeff Fisher. I'm so surprised. 22 years, entering his 22nd season as an NFL head coach, only has 6 playoff appearances on his resume. We all know that with Les Snead, he's got some say in terms of who they draft. My goodness, if they've missed the boat on this and has blown the #1 overall pick in the draft on Jared Goff, we got a problem. And somebody needs to be looking at Jeff Fisher, because it's one thing for him not to be ready, but for him not to be on an active roster, this is bad.
Well, you and Coach Gruden earlier point out, listen, a true junior and new system, he's not familiar with it. This is a long-term play, not a short-term play. I think it's way too early to make a judgment about Goff, the quarterback, whether they made a mistake taking him #1 instead of someone else. They made a mistake trading up in the draft in the first place. They didn't have the #1 overall pick. The Rams had to trade 2 firsts overall, 2 seconds, and 2 thirds to get the #1 overall pick. That's called invented. You can't invent a great player. They have to actually be there. And this was the kind of draft where you didn't see any great quarterbacks. There was no Cam Newton or Andrew Luck, a guy who was obviously going to be great. It was just a typical year where you might find a quarterback if you looked. And the Rams tried to invent a quarterback by trading all this stuff to trade up to #1 and took the guy that they wanted. It's an indictment of them and the organization that they did that. Not Goff, because he's not ready week 1 to take over.
It's an indictment against them for what they did. But the point is, if you do all of that, you had damn well better be sure that this is the guy. And I mean, for politics, far be it for me to say this, but for politics purposes, you got to keep him on the active roster. I mean, my God, to just not even have him on the active roster, you're telling the world, damn, we don't think he can play, which makes everyone look at you. And Jeff Fisher, I mean, think about, do you have any idea how idiotic you have to be to sit up there and draft a quarterback #1 overall and then turn around and tell the world he ain't even active? You know how bad that is?
Worse than that. It's worse than that, because the same 2 guys, take away Foles, Mannion and Case Keenum, were on the roster when they made the trade up. So it's even worse than that, Stephen A., because they're there going, the 2 guys we have on the roster are so bad, we need to trade 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and 2 thirds to find our quarterback. Then you draft that guy because the other guys are so bad, but they're better than he is right now. So the optics are terrible.
You can talk about I mean, listen, everything about Jeff Fisher seems terrible right now. I mean, the city of Los Angeles really need to look at this brother and just ask themselves, I mean, are we really moving it up? We're happy y'all are back, but did he need to come? I mean, it's a legitimate question right now. 6 playoff appearances entering his 22nd season, and this man still got a job, and then on top of it all, drafted dudes #1 overall, and they ain't even on the active roster.
And Wentz and Prescott are starting.
Listen, I like Les Snead. I mean, but somebody got to explain something.
Guess what, guys?
I'm looking at Fisher.
Guess what, guys? NFL, it's our last show. That it was the preseason, right? It's officially the NFL season. Tomorrow, we cannot wait. Fat Joe will be here.
Everybody knows Fat Joe in town.